Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. We're just going to wait another minute or so while the audience fills in, and then we will get started shortly. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for our event this afternoon. We're just going to give it another minute or so, and then we will start the presentation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Star Duker, and I work on diversity, equity, and inclusion at ITI, in addition to STEM workforce issues. I also lead the Inclusive Innovation Working Group, and the working group exists to find ways in which the tech sector can play in addressing racial discrimination and social injustice in this country. And we do so, we have a 3-part mission, and one of those ways is to have events with key experts who are all here today. This event today is part of a series. If you'd like to check out any of our past series, please visit our ITI's YouTube account, and a link will also be dropped in the chat with a link to that channel so you could check out past events. I will now turn things over to Jason Oxman, our president and CEO, and he will be moderating the event for today. Thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, Star, and good afternoon, everyone. And thanks for joining us for this important in our continuing series of discussions on racial equality, systemic discrimination, and work that the tech industry can and should do to address these important societal issues. We're proud to bring to you today the perspectives of a number of technology companies and individuals who are active in addressing these policy issues. The goal of our event today is to learn from best practices and to hear a call to action to do more as an industry and do more as individuals to address these important societal issues. I want to introduce our panelists to you today. We're going to have a round of commentary and discussion, and then most importantly, we reserve time for your questions. So please prepare them and get ready to ask insightful and thoughtful questions of our panelists who are here as experts to help inform our discussion and your next steps. We're pleased to be joined today by Robin Boggs from Accenture, Liz Lowe from Adobe, Dr. Lori Esposito Murray from the Committee for Economic Development, and Grace Sue from IBM. I'm going to allow each of them to give a more formal introduction of themselves, their role in their companies, and then we'll start our discussion. So Robin, let me start with you and ask you to tell us all about your role of Accenture and a little bit about the background of your work.
Yeah, sure, Jason. Thank you so much. As you said, I'm Robin Boggs. I'm the Director of Corporate Citizenship in the US for Accenture. I've been with the company for 23 years, all based out of my city of birth, Atlanta, Georgia. I did, prior to coming into this role, spend quite a bit of time in our consulting practice, primarily doing sales and customer relationship management work, and was delighted to make the switch over into corporate citizenship back in 2011. Right at the beginning of when we launched our signature program, Skills to Succeed. So I spend my time shepherding that program and our grant making across the US towards Skills to Succeed and environmental stewardship, and have the privilege of also getting our people excited about those through employee giving and volunteering. I'm glad to be here today.
Terrific, and we're thrilled to have you, Robin. Thank you. Liz from Adobe.
So, hi everyone, I'm Liz Lowe from Adobe, and I'm excited to be a part of today's conversation. I grew up in Palo Alto, California, in the heart of Silicon Valley, and recognized really early on how both systems and the family I grew up in really afforded me the privilege to get where I am today. And that guided me in my career path of bridging resources to communities that often don't have access or opportunity. So in my role now at Adobe, I've been with Adobe for almost 7 years. I head up our community engagement team, which includes our foundation work, our product donation, sponsorships, scholarships, and the program I'm excited to talk about today that's focused on modern apprenticeships, the Adobe Digital Academy. Thanks.
Terrific, Liz. Thank you. And we look forward to hearing about that program and other activities at Adobe. Dr. Murray from the Committee for Economic Development, thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Jason. It's my pleasure to join you and our panelists. I'm Lori Esposito Murray, President of the Committee for Economic Development of the Conference Board. It's the public policy center of the Conference Board, and we have about 160 trustees, all leaders at the top of their field in business, working to harness the power of business leadership to address the nation's most critical economic and social issues. And we've been in existence since 1942, which was the last time that our nation faced as big a crisis as we're facing now. And I come out of the public policy world. I've been in senior positions for both Republicans and Democrats on the Hill, in the executive branch, State Department, White House. And it is a privilege to be joining you today.
Thank you. We're thrilled to have you. And let me ask our last panelist, Grace from IBM, to introduce herself and her role as well.
Great, thank you, Jason. Hi, everyone. I'm Grace Su. I'm Vice President for Education and Skills with IBM Corporate Social Responsibility. We have a very robust portfolio that spans K-12 through early college and adult upskilling and reskilling. Everything that we do is focused on education equity and workforce inclusion. I've had the great pleasure of being at IBM now I'm in my 25th year. I can hardly believe it. The time has gone by so fast. But I also have a background in both government, working on juvenile justice systems and how education can help vulnerable young people who are in incarceration. And I have a background working in nonprofits. I was with the Children's Defense Fund as well in Washington, D.C. and really happy to be here today. So thank you.
Terrific, and looking forward to your remarks and discussion of IBM's efforts around education and skills training as well. Let me circle back to Robin from Accenture and ask her to kick us off. I mentioned in my opening remarks that one of our goals today is to provide some learnings to companies that may be looking to adopt programs related to education, workforce skills training, and Accenture has an inclusive future of work initiative launched back in 2018, which was originally targeted at individual cities, but certainly has grown from there. And in the COVID-19 era, obviously the program has had to make some changes to make sure it was meeting the current needs as we face a health pandemic. So I wonder, Robin, if I can ask you to talk about where the Inclusive Future of Work initiative came from at Accenture and how in the last couple of years you've updated and adapted the program to the current environment.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Happy to kick us off. So as we all know, I think intelligent technologies like analytics and big data and AI and robotics are really changing and reshaping what we know as work. And while these programs and capabilities offer tremendous growth opportunities for both businesses and individuals, we recognize that there are definitely people who are in the process of this transformation of work, facing a double disadvantage and being both at higher risk of displacement due to these technologies, and have the fewest resources to be able to adapt. And what's been really interesting as we have continued to look at the data we have had around this, we realize that many of these communities, the people who are at this double disadvantage are largely people of color. So it's been a really interesting thing for us to continue to explore in the COVID environment. But as you said, it launched in 2018. It really came out of a global report that we issued that looked really not just at the US, but across the world and it looked and issued a call to action and identified 4 solution spaces and where stakeholders really needed to come together to collaborate on the pathways to the future of work so that everybody would have the motivation and opportunity to continue to be employed in the digital economy. In the US, though, we knew that we couldn't look for specific solutions that would be applicable or implementable at a national level because the workforce issues are so widely different. I mean, what we are facing here in Atlanta, where we have done some work, is very different, for example, than what the workforce needs and industry are in Las Vegas, right? So we could not take a one-size-fits-all for the United States. We had to look across all of the metropolitan statistical areas, all of the communities and states, to really think about what needed to happen locally. Because again, not only are the workforce issues and industries different, the ways in which workforce development is handled vary so widely. So we decided to look sort of right in the middle of the United States, in a classic Midwestern city of St. Louis, and started to really drill down into the community, taking the larger global findings and then taking a next step down to look very specifically at what was going to be happening in St. Louis. And what our additional research indicated was that up to 58% of the jobs in St. Louis, in that metropolitan statistical area, could face automation in the next 20 years. And that became a rallying cry for us to bring together stakeholders from public sector, from the private sector together. More than 80 different partners came together to talk about the research from the original Inclusive Future of Work report, as well as the secondary data that we had pulled together, and make a sort of brainstorm on what St. Louis really needed to do as a community to protect itself from this potentially devastating transition in the workforce. So we ended up launching a very specific pilot called My Path, My Future, where we helped 100 workers from the St. Louis Promise Zone be able to transition into digital economy jobs in IT. And what was unique about that was how we stitched together a lot of different partners to provide not just the skilling pieces, but the wraparound services and other resources that they actually needed to be able to make the transition. So things as simple as ensuring that workers had childcare, that they had rides to work, and that they had ability to get from one position to another as they were going through this transition. So that's been a really successful pilot. We have then continued to look at that same model for other locations across the US. We've had some events similar to that in cities in the South. COVID has had an impact on our being able to bring people together for those really wonderful, very energizing face-to-face events. We're hoping that at some point we'll be able to do that again in the future, but we've continued to do those things virtually. We're also taking another step back to look at the data again and seeing what the impact of COVID specifically and the transformation that it is now having on the workforce, and what is that doing. As we know, many companies are looking to much more rapidly transition to digital and automated technologies that are having an impact on people being able to continue at work. So we continue to look at that data, and we'll see how the race and ethnicity that we identified early on is continuing to be a factor, as that has also been something that has been an important part of our conversation and national dialogue since since the March timeframe. So I'll just
very interesting, and great to see that you've made the necessary changes to the program to ensure its continued success. And on a related note, we'll talk in a minute, I know, about your People Plus Work Connect program that you've launched with the HR departments of many other Accenture clients, and actually technology companies like ServiceNow and Verizon. So we'll look forward to talking about that in a minute as well. Liz, one of the focuses at Adobe in workforce reskilling and training has been on apprenticeships. And I hope I'm not divulging anything. I actually read about this in an award that was given to you by your alma mater, that you actually started at Adobe as an intern. So clearly this is an effort that you know a lot about because of the importance of the internship program to getting you where you are today as an executive at Adobe. So can you tell us a little bit about, first of all, how coming into Adobe as an intern shaped you for the rest of your career there, if you don't mind talking a little bit about that, but also the apprenticeship focus that you have at Adobe as well.
Yeah, so starting as an intern, I was finishing up my MBA over at UC Berkeley Haas School of Business. And I had really focused on design thinking and the rapid prototyping model. So I brought that to building this modern apprenticeship program and really focused first on interviewing business leaders across the company to understand what their hiring needs were, and then using that to inform the pilot of the program and to keep iterating on the program. So I think being an intern really gave me that card to reach out to as many people as possible and learn from them in trying to create a program. So the modern apprenticeship program that I built, the Adobe Digital Academy, is really an accelerated pathway for non-traditional candidates to break into tech and design careers. So when we piloted in 2016, we started by offering 5 full scholarships and living stipends to individuals to learn web development. Since then, we've scaled and expanded to offer tracks in web development, user experience design, and data science. And after the individuals go through the scholarship portion of the program, they then come in-house for an apprenticeship program at Adobe. And from there, we've had 50% of candidates go on to full-time roles at Adobe. And we have around 96% that end up in full-time roles at companies such as Google, LinkedIn, Workday, Facebook. So we've been really excited to see, as this program expands over the years, how the alumni network stays strong, and we're able to see that having this apprenticeship and work experience really sets individuals on the pathway. The program, the really key part of the program is the partnerships. So internally, I'm on Adobe's corporate social responsibility team, and I partner really closely with Adobe Talent, or HR, our diversity and inclusion team, and then our hiring managers to understand what skills are going to be needed on those teams and where to potentially place candidates. And then externally, we have nonprofit networks in each of the geographies where this program exists in order to help those nonprofits bring candidates into the program. So we really coach through what we're looking for. We try to be as transparent as possible in terms of what helps someone succeed, but individuals can come from backgrounds as diverse as someone that hasn't finished their undergraduate degree to someone that's a first comer to the US and might have a PhD that hasn't been able to translate over to the US. We have a small pilot internationally as well in Basel with a refugee organization. But it's been something that with COVID, we've been able to rapidly change, and I'm excited for the future of, because now by being virtual in both the education portion and the apprenticeship portion, we've been able to open up the program across geographies in the US. So we're not tied any longer to Adobe's offices. And to me, one of the most exciting parts of the program is now having a woman who went through the program herself being the program manager and really shaping the future of the program. So she keeps iterating and deciding what is it that everyone needs that's going through this program. On average, individuals that enter into the program are earning under $30,000 a year. And upon exiting, their entry level salary is at $100K. So in a year's time, we see a lot of economic opportunity from this program. And the greater vision is that someday every company will have an apprenticeship program the same way every company has a university internship program. And that this is just a way for career switchers or individuals that didn't have sort of the system working in their favor, the privilege to be able to rapidly enter into these industries. We have put out a playbook on this program, and we're always trying to iterate and learn ourselves. So I was so excited for today's conversation in terms of being able to bring some of these learnings back and try to keep iterating our program as we continue.
Fantastic. Thanks, Liz. Great program, and how terrific that you have somebody who went through the program continuing to guide it into the future. And those numbers about the salary increases are amazing. I mean, that tells the story right there about the importance of these kind of programs. Grace, I want to go over to you and talk about IBM's efforts. IBM is known for focusing on two very important, separate but connected areas of skills building. You have the PTech program that is focused on education programs around STEM technology, and also the Skills Build program, Skills Build being focused on creating the next chapter in your career through learning experience in technology and reskilling. I actually want to start with the Skills Build program and maybe circle back to PTech a little bit later. Can you tell us what it is? IBM obviously is a huge employer, hundreds of thousands of IBMers around the world. Why is the Skills Build program so important to the success of the company?
Well, thank you for the question. These are two programs that we're immensely proud about. Skills Build is actually, while serving adults from non-traditional backgrounds, is actually our younger program. It's less than 2 years old. And we launched this as a platform, a free IBM offering for job seekers who are looking for learning and career opportunities. It's very much takes advantage of technology to accelerate skills acquisition, while also working with nonprofits on the ground to ensure that learners have the supports that they need to be able to enter into careers up a learning ladder. So really focused on in-demand careers. We partner knowing that a platform in and of itself is not enough to be able to support a learner, especially one from a vulnerable background, into a competitive job. We partner very closely with nonprofit organizations, whether they're working with young adults without traditional degrees. They could be opportunity youth, for example. We work with refugees, migrants, asylum seekers. We work with veterans as well. And we work also with, for example, people who've been out of the job market that want to return. And certainly given COVID these days, we're also looking to work with learners who want to pivot in their career and transfer to a new kind of job opportunity. So with Skills Build, learners have the opportunity to actually partake in coursework that goes down a career pathway, and that can be in AI, it can be in blockchain, it can be in data science. We have courses in quantum and customer service. The idea is that learners are getting in-depth learning, and along the way they're earning digital badges, and these are the same badges that industry professionals earn. So they have cachet in the marketplace, and they create a signal to employers that you as a learner have the skills needed to perform well in a job. Because we're working with nonprofit organizations, we also provide support to the nonprofit to help them understand how do you incorporate hybrid learning into the supports and learning that you're already providing to your clients. So we actually provide what we call a digital success manager to work with nonprofit organizations for a period of 6 months. So we partner with those nonprofit organizations and give the workers there the training that they need to be able to understand the online platform and use it well with their clients as well. So this is a platform actually that's available globally. We're now in 10 countries and growing, and want to be able to provide it more across the United States and around the world. Given COVID, and while we've made this available to nonprofit organizations, we're now opening it up more to learners who may come to it independently from a nonprofit. So trying to make the learning more open to individuals as well. So that's an effort that we're trying to do because of COVID, and we're going to be moving more in that direction, even though that we are wed to our commitment to working very closely with nonprofits to give our learners the supports they require.
And the program is free and available, as you mentioned, around the world in partnership with NGOs, including here in the U.S., organizations like the USO and the United Way. Just a terrifically important program, and look forward to hearing more about it and the PTech program as well. But Lori, I want to switch our focus a little bit to the role of government. You mentioned in your bio your bipartisan credentials, both geographically, having worked on the Hill and at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue for both the Clinton administration and the Bush administration. So we're glad to have your bipartisan or nonpartisan participation today to talk about the role of government in all of these issues. And we've certainly seen a lot of focus in the Trump administration on worker training issues. The National Council for the American Worker was one interagency effort. There was also the American Workforce Advisory Board. We saw similar programs during the Clinton administration, the Bush administration, the Obama administration as well. And I think every expectation that the Biden-Harris administration, when it kicks off in January, will have a focus on workforce training. I wonder if you can talk to us about what you see as the role of reskilling initiatives at the federal level. What's gone well that you've seen? What is the proper role of government in reskilling issues? And what advice, frankly, would you provide to governments at the federal level and state and local level as well about the role they should play and what they can do to help address these important issues?
Well, I should start by saying this has been a very important and central issue for CED, the Committee for Economic Development, even prior to COVID-19. CED's mission is really to make sure that our economic system, that capitalism, is providing opportunity and prosperity for all Americans. And so you have to that provides a central focus on workforce, future workforce, workforce training. And as we all know, even prior to the pandemic, the good news, bad news was that the fastest growth was in the technology, IT, computer sectors, according to BLS data. But also that was the area that was going to get, everyone was very concerned would get hit the hardest in terms of initial employment being contracted. And so that makes training in this area critically important. Looking at the training programs across administrations, for the most part, I think you could draw the general conclusion that the federal programs really have not been working as well as they should. And every administration has recognized this and every administration has tried to tackle it. But the adult and dislocated worker program, which serves about those are two of our largest federally funded programs, about 1.8 billion a year, services about 7 million people. For the most part, according to a very large study, found that only half of those enrolled in those training programs were able to find a job because of the training program. And only about 2 in 5 found the job in the occupation that they trained for. So the training wasn't inadequate. The shortfall is connecting the two, connecting the training with the job opportunity. And a recent RAND study found the same problem in New Orleans, the Career Pathways Program. And of course, we've heard a lot about Detroit because of JP Morgan Chase and their evaluations of what was happening in Detroit, that is similar issues. And so, but out of that, what I think you could say has been successful, some of the successful elements of these programs are apprenticeships, which we just heard about, and are extremely important. And also these partnerships between the employers and the local, regional, state communities. And so connecting those two. The emphasis really needs to be on employers training their workforce and connecting that training to where they see their jobs moving, particularly in the tech field. But you have, even prior to the pandemic, the hardest hit unemployed being of lower education, not high school, and the pandemic has shown a spotlight on that. I mean, we've suffered major unemployment that we haven't seen since World War II, and similar to the Great Depression numbers, close to the Great Depression numbers, but happening in a month as opposed to 3 years. And the hardest hit are at the bottom of the education level and also the income level. And we still have now, 8 months later, millions of Americans are now facing long-term unemployment, even though the economy has come back, and half of those who were unemployed at the beginning of this major economic setback have gone back to work. Those who are unemployed or still furloughed and looking at long-term unemployment are at the lower end of the education level, which makes training and upskilling so absolutely critical right now. And there has to be a federal government role for those employees, those unemployed who are not connected to employment or employers who can actually train them. So it's two pieces. It really has to be employers working to assess what their needs are and training their workforce for those needs, but also a federal, which has become even more important because of COVID, in terms of getting to the unemployed and training them. And we're losing a tremendous opportunity here. And CED was one of the earliest organizations, business economic organizations, that we were actually calling for training support for the unemployed and furloughed workers back at the very, very beginning of April. And that should be part of the COVID package, the first packages of COVID.
And given that responsibility for employers to figure out how to address the unique challenges of finding good people during the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly because, as you said, it's hard to make those connections to people and find them. Robin, I wanted to circle back to you because Accenture is working on this very problem with the People Work Connect program that you launched during COVID-19, which I think is an incredibly unique program in that, A, you brought together the human resources departments of various Accenture partners, including companies that compete against each other for talent. And you used Accenture's incredible analytics tools to build a program to allow companies to fill available positions with employees that other companies may have let go, and also allow the companies to essentially collaborate with each other on geographies where they're having trouble finding people and efforts to increase the talent pool. Can you tell us about how this program came to be? And I'm fascinated how you got all these different companies, organizations to work together on this as well.
Well, it is incredible what can happen when very senior people at companies decide to work together. And that's really what happened with People and Work Connect. It originated out of some, closed door conversations that were happening between our CHRO, Ellen Shook, and her peers, Lincoln Financial, ServiceNow, Verizon being among them. They were talking about things that are important to CHROs, and one of those was what was happening, with workforce, their own workforces. Some having workforce reductions, some having, too much demand and not enough people. And in the sort of dialogue around this, it sort of emerged as, how can we just actually connect the companies that have talent over here, maybe in excess, and those who are over here who don't have nearly enough people, how do we actually connect them? And Ellen knew that this was an opportunity for Accenture with its analytics and technology and digital capabilities to come out and try and solve this. And so very quickly, seriously, in a matter of just a few weeks, People and Work Connect was born. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the program, it's a free online employer-to-employer platform that enables organizations to identify and fill jobs in locations where there's a need. So a company can log on and designate that in a particular location there is a supply of talent that is coming available, and companies in the same area can actually see that and use the platform to make connections. It's not intended to be a replacement for any of the tools like Indeed.com. It is not intended to be used for individuals to, sort of find jobs for themselves. It's really about connecting employers, knowing that, again, we have, oftentimes, a lot of roles that maybe need to move at once, and certainly a lot of companies that continue to hire to meet demand. So currently, on the platform, and this is as of just a few days ago, we have 95 countries across the world who have posted roles on the platform. More than 257 organizations are posting roles on there, and we're up to almost 402,000 different roles that have been loaded onto the platform. So that's encompassing both roles that need to be filled and roles that need to be identified for people who are currently available. So I think it's just a fantastic example of, again, how senior people can, sort of set aside their individual needs and just really collaborate to do something that's really of benefit to all, and certainly has been a tremendously impactful solution for individual workers who, have been in this sort of difficult moment of transition as a result of COVID.
And this is a program that is still open to other organizations that want to join, right?
It is still open to organizations who, both are looking for talent and those who think they may, still have talent who are going to become available. So yeah, it's definitely still open.
Terrific. Liz, I suspect you get asked a lot, and I'll ask you now, for advice on how to become an employee at a great technology company like Adobe or others. Particularly in the current pandemic where unemployment unfortunately has started ticking back up again. We just saw the weekly numbers start to climb this week. A lot of people are looking for opportunities, and the technology industry, as Robin just talked about, is looking for a lot of people. This gap between people looking for jobs and technology companies that have those opportunities is one that's often challenging for individuals to fill, even if they have the skills necessary for those jobs to find them, or certainly if they don't yet have those skills to acquire them in order to work in the technology industry. What's some of the advice that you think is most helpful that you give when you're called upon, that your colleagues at Adobe give for those who are seeking opportunities in the tech sector?
Jason, I'll go ahead and answer this from the perspective of career switchers. So someone that is looking to break into tech or design. And this is the advice that I give to candidates and then nonprofits that we're working with as well. I think the first thing, it sounds so simple, but a passion or interest in the career you're going into. So we often ask, how do you feel about sitting at a computer for 8 hours a day and coding? Is that something that you're actually interested in doing? And being able to show that to recruiters or HR by saying, look at what I built on my own, look at all these free resources that I've taken advantage of. Right now, there's so many learning platforms that individuals can access free of charge. What have you done with those resources? The second thing that we really look for is a growth mindset. Dr. Carol Dweck out of Stanford really championed the idea that we're never fixed and we can always keep learning. So how has this individual showed that they just started learning guitar, even though they've never touched a musical instrument before, or they're again sort of entering to learn coding and they're doing that by spending their evenings after working 2 different shifts, playing around on different free resources. So really showing that growth mindset. The third element that we really look for is grit. So how has this individual overcome challenges in their lives? And this really is going to show, what do they do when they face different obstacles in the workplace? And being able to display that, maybe it's a personal experience. We have quite a few women, mothers returning to the workforce that end up going through this program, and they're able to say, I was a single mom living under the poverty line, juggling 3 children, and I was able to make it work. We all survived. And being able to show that ability to overcome those challenges. The fourth element that we look for is communication skills. So the program, this is something that I think definitely can be coached and taught, but there are so many subtleties to corporate communication, both verbally and written. And has this individual learned it either through the nonprofit program that they've been with or through other resources, again, that are free and available online? LinkedIn has an incredible program right now for anyone that's been affected by COVID to be able to learn a lot of these skills connected with Microsoft. And I think those resources are out there, and being able to show those communication skills is really important. The last element that we really look for is an overall potential for success. So again, I'm speaking specifically for career switchers, but if they were, let's say, working in the IT industry or a teacher, did they show that they were promoted or had sort of a growth trajectory within those careers? And we're able to see that potential as translatable to the new career that the individual is entering into. So those are the 5 things that I would say, really be able to show and display those, and that'll help you in the next steps in your career.
Enormously helpful advice, and something we could all benefit from. and all use to pass on to those, particularly those career switchers, as you call them, who are interested in the technology sector, but didn't necessarily have that STEM education as they were going through schooling. And on that subject, Grace, I want to come back to you about the P-Tech program that IBM successfully launched a number of years ago and continues to expand and grow. To Lori's observation that there is a role for the private sector in hiring and training, IBM is going even farther down the pipeline to people who are still in school and making sure that they have access to STEM education. Can you tell us where the P-Tech program came from, and maybe, since you have a number of years of data, if you're seeing results in the significant investment in time and resources that IBM has made in helping STEM education move forward in this country?
Yes, happy to. So P-Tech was designed to address two gaps, both the skills gap that employers are facing in finding the right talent for in-demand jobs, and also the opportunity gap in knowing that there are far too many young people that have been historically and consistently denied access to equitable education opportunities. So P-Tech is really about reforming high school as we know it. So rather than a grades 9 through 12 experience, P-Tech is grades 9 through 14. And students are graduating with both their high school diploma along with an industry recognized associate's degree. And that's based upon the fact that we know that a high school diploma is no longer enough to support a worker into a middle-class lifestyle. So it's important to get learners to a degree that has weight in the 21st century economy. Every P-Tech school is a collaboration between a high school, a community college, and an industry partner. We integrate everything. Students take high school and college coursework at the same time. They enter knowing they're college students, and they're there to earn their free associate's degree. Industry partners are there to provide a range of workplace experiences. So we provide one-to-one mentoring, students go on worksite visits. As soon as they turn 16 years old and they have some college credit under their belt, they participate in paid internships. And then upon graduation, they are first in line for jobs with their industry partner. This is a model that we launched in Brooklyn in 2011, but we've always focused on systemic change. How do we go beyond creating this beautiful jewel in Brooklyn, New York, and spreading it across the United States and around the world? We're now in 11 states with the model. We rely on government funding in order for the model to replicate, and we're in more than 27 countries around the world with this model, all focused on skills gap and opportunity gap. The program serves, again, students from disadvantaged backgrounds first in their families to graduate with a college degree. There are no testing or grade requirements. We are starting to see some really promising results. We are seeing graduation rates that are 4 and 5 times the national on-time community college graduation rate here in the US, which stands at a dismal 13%. We are seeing hires into the company. We've hired now well over 60 young people into apprenticeships and jobs. And there are more than 600 business partners that are now participating in the model. It can't just be IBM for this to really enable systemic change. So we have businesses around the world who are taking the model and bringing it to local communities to spur local economic reinvigoration.
Terrific program. And Lori, I want to come back to you on the connection between those kind of education programs and skilling programs and your recommended public policy solutions. Again, as we head into a change in administration, more than most, having worked in both the executive and the legislative branch, that it's difficult to move public policies into law. But I wonder if you have some ideas that you'll be sharing with the 117th Congress and with the Biden-Harris administration about how to operationalize some of these great ideas that we've been talking about, public policies, perhaps legislation or regulatory activity that can make that link between the education programs, the skilling gap, and the historic levels of unemployment we have in this country at the same time that industries like the technology industry have a lot of openings to fill. What's the public policy solution that you'd like to see?
So Jason, we are actually working on this and preparing our 100-day proposals for the new administration on really how to deal with both these incredible challenges we're facing, the high unemployment levels, the projected slower growth, and how to actually take advantage of the opportunities. And one of the main opportunities we've seen is the a quick and fast integration of technology, the acceleration of that pace into our economy, which then all of these programs that we have been discussing today are absolutely key and essential. And the approach, though, has to be a 360 approach. And that's what we're recommending, that you can't just do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And among the things that we really think need to be done in the first 100 days to address exactly this issue, to get America back to work, and to make sure that we're helping those who are getting hurt the most, which are the low-wage workers who are finding it the hardest to come back and are facing long-term unemployment. It involves what we see as, both a short-term infrastructure and longer-term, more comprehensive infrastructure program that would actually include this very important component of providing broadband, filling those gaps, both for the workforce needs it and education needs it, in order to make sure that we're not falling farther behind and staying competitive. And that everyone has access to the technology they need in order to be part of the learning force and the workforce. It also involves education reform across all the levels, the key being what we've already discussed here, the K through 12 and the post-secondary, actually focusing that education, working with the business community and their projections forward. And this is going to change. This is a lifetime skilling effort that we need to be involved in as technology changes rapidly, but working on that curriculum with the business community so that students are being trained for the skills that are needed, as well as one of the biggest barriers, as everyone on this panel knows, in terms of getting into the tech field, is this 4-year college requirement that most of these jobs have, and as IBM has been a leader on in terms of trying to develop a more of a certificate approach. But you have to also change the job requirements on the business end. And so education reform, early education is absolutely critical, and childcare. We were mentioning in the discussion what Accenture is doing, the importance of the childcare industry and stabilizing the childcare industry so people can go back to work and can go back to school as well. You need the early education in order to make sure that the most disadvantaged children actually have that early education that is so critical to brain development and don't start off behind the 8 ball in terms of opportunity. And I would also mention, and too, as you said, regulation. We've seen the lifting of regulation being so critical in a number of areas, including in the technology area and the healthcare field, really looking at smart regulation and what is it that we need? What have we lifted, particularly in the tech area, that has allowed us to respond rapidly to problems? What should stay lifted? What should go in place? A very serious, comprehensive review and to come out with a smart regulation program. And those I would put as key to what we're seeing in terms of getting America back to work and opening up opportunities and keeping America at work as the demands and the technology demands accelerate and change.
We can certainly be hopeful that a divided Congress and a divided government will move forward on those issues. It's a great roadmap and certainly echoes a lot of what ITI has been looking to have.
And a lot of I was going to say, in terms of Congress and in terms of the Biden-Harris campaign proposals, community colleges and broad access institutions are really important here. In terms of both, we're calling for block grants for those institutions, and there's a lot of support in Congress for that, and there's a very deep awareness, in the campaign proposals of the Biden-Harris team in terms of the importance of the community colleges, precisely this issue and providing those opportunities and providing the breakthrough or the breakout from the high four-year college requirement in order to work, particularly in this sector, which is such a critical, booming sector that's going to keep America competitive.
Yeah, it certainly highlights the importance of what Grace was talking about at IBM with the P-Tech program and non-traditional four-year degrees, and Liz talking about the apprenticeship program as well. Not surprisingly, we have some great questions coming in from the audience. I want to get to a couple of those as we have just about under 10 minutes left. Hannah Emerson notes that these are amazing programs and ideas, which is certainly true. And then I want to ask Robin to take on our question, because it kind of alludes to something you and I were talking about before about the success of Accenture and bringing together employers that compete against each other for talent. From a business standpoint, Hannah asks, one of the challenges in investing in training is then losing those trainees to other businesses. Great for the individual, not so great for the business that invested in the training. So recommendations on how to get the best outcome for both, for the investing in the training and making sure that some other employer doesn't benefit directly from all that investment in training. Robin, we'll start with you, and then anybody else who has any thoughts as well.
Yeah, so just a couple of reactions to that. I think first, we recognize that while we may invest in people and have them move on to other opportunities, the same is true of the talent that we acquire. We often do get very experienced people who have had the benefit of working in other companies and have been able to participate in their own training and development programs. So I think there's a sort of reality that there is sometimes a lot of movement back and forth between some of the companies. That said, I think we have been historically known as a people development company. That was the capability, that was the foundation for our commitment to Skills to Succeed back in 2010. We recognize that we do a fantastic job of developing people, raising talent through our own company. We can take somebody from being now an apprentice. Maybe one day we'll have a former apprentice as our CEO, who knows? But we also recognize that in addition to what we do in terms of developing our own talent, we have a responsibility and an opportunity to develop talent outside of our own walls in the communities where we're living and working. And so for us, it's not just about what we do to continue to develop, to new skill our own people, to create new opportunities for people to come into Accenture, to build skills that will carry them through their own careers, but that we're creating opportunities for people outside who may just simply be beneficiaries of our investment and not coming to be talented at Accenture at all. So just a few thoughts there.
Great thoughts. And Liz, I thought of you as well, because you mentioned that the apprenticeship program results in about, I think you said 50% of the people who go through the program getting jobs at Adobe, and then the others going off and getting jobs somewhere else, and you've paid for their training. So do you ever get any pushback about making those investments, and what's your response to that?
It's quite similar to the point that Robin brought up in terms of investing in the community. And I think the unique component of Adobe's Modern Apprenticeship Program is that it's a partnership between our corporate responsibility group and our HR and diversity and inclusion team. And so we're able to look at our portfolio of investments. We had a number of programs that focused on youth coding. And we asked the question, what about adults or career switchers? How can we invest in them? So a component of the Adobe Digital Academy is to really look at this as another part of our community investment portfolio and looking at offering scholarships to individuals that wouldn't have had the opportunity to pursue a career in tech and design without the scholarship. And so I think if individuals are able to have that partnership between corporate responsibility and HR, then you open up a lot of opportunity in terms of thinking about this as a community investment.
Jason, I'll add one thing to that, which is the reality is too that a lot of people who leave Accenture end up going to work for our clients and they become our customers. So in a sense, the investment we have made in some of that talent isn't ever really lost, or at least we hope it's not.
I'll also add that our research at the Conference Board has shown that companies that invest in their employees and their training and their upskilling, there's actually a loyalty component that comes with that.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a 96% retention rate from the program, and it's incredible to see the leadership positions that our early full-time hires have taken on in the way they've really owned their career at Adobe. And I think it's been really incredible to see. The one individual that left went to go start his own AI startup. So we were very excited for him.
Probably using Adobe software in that startup as well. So it probably worked out in the end as well. Star, I'm going to invite you back because I think you have another question for the group, and probably the last question that we'll have time for.
Thank you, Jason. Yes. My question was, how can public and private partnerships come together to address workforce issues?
That might be a good question for Grace, actually. Grace, you talked a lot about how you're partnering with NGOs and NPOs and other organizations around the world on the program, the skilling program. Can you talk a little bit about how those partnerships work?
Yeah, I think, you know, these partnerships, in what we found is these partnerships work best when each of the partners is providing their best expertise and contributing that to ensure the success of the learner. And the important part also is really creating that seamless and supported pathway that goes from education or training programs all the way up to jobs. So there really has to be a thread from the learning to job acquisition for the partnership to be really successful. So you have to be able to have a plan for learners that ultimately leads to the goal of getting them into viable, competitive employment. Nonprofits play a really important role in providing the kinds of supports that learners might need, whether that's childcare or transportation, and really just understanding particular needs of the community that you're working with. So that piece becomes really important. And then employers play a really huge role in giving workplace experiences so that we know that work begets work, and that when we give learners the opportunity to do actual projects with employers, that actually opens up the aperture for them to get jobs. So it's really the interplay of all the partners together providing their best expertise that leads to the kinds of outcomes that we're all working towards.
Jason, could I just underscore that, but add a very quick point, which is, you know, that training to job is so critical, and that's where most of the federal programs have fallen short. But in terms of, and that's where this collaboration is absolutely necessary. And I just wanted to add, it's absolutely necessary on a local level. It's working with the local community colleges and institutions that can do the training, and the business community working with them on curriculum, and then the nonprofits, as Grace was saying, working with the other needs, the childcare needs. You need, working on a local level is absolutely critical for businesses to engage.
Makes sense. And Grace, actually, in the 30 seconds we have left, it reminded me to ask you, because we had another question from the audience that I didn't think we were going to get to. Given COVID-19, a lot of people working from home, learning from home, has this meant that you've had to adapt the P-TECH program and other skilling programs because of the pandemic and the fact that people might not have access to the technology or the childcare or other things that they need? It poses, I can imagine, some unique challenges. Have you been able to address some of those or start to address them?
Yeah, it's been a huge challenge. We are trying to, a lot of the workplace experiences are very hands-on, so we're pivoting, we're providing online mentoring. Between now and December 21, we'll be providing 1,000 virtual internships. And we're using this time to engage young people as much as we can, help them to really come to the online table if they're participating in virtual school. And trying to also learn during this time and understand what works in this hybrid or remote environment to engage students in learning. One last thing I'll just say is that in addition to what Dr. Esposito Murray said about local, is also having employers really articulate the skills that are required in the local economy so that everybody can work toward those skills, whether it is the community college or educators themselves.
Terrific. That's a great note for us to end on as we look for more opportunities to advance education and equal opportunity in this terrible pandemic that we face. Great to hear about the work that the technology industry is doing and public policy experts are doing to help our nation recover from the pandemic and skill people for the jobs of the future. Thank you so much, Robin and Liz and Lori and Grace, for your absolutely phenomenal, fascinating discussion today. We are grateful at ITI for all the work that you're doing to help advance these important issues, and we look forward to continuing to work together in the future. Thank you very much for your time today, and thanks to all of our participants for joining us as part of our continuing event series at ITI.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.